Alright everybody, final story for today. So here we are. Saudi women activist rejects release deal tied to denying torture. So prominent Saudi women's, this is in Riyadh. Prominent Saudi women's rights activist Lujain al-Hathlal has rejected a proposal to secure her release from prison in exchange for a video statement denying reports she was tortured in custody, her family said on Tuesday. Hathlal, along with at least a dozen other women's rights activists, were arrested over a year ago as Saudi Arabia ended a ban on women driving cars, which many of the detainees had long campaigned for. Local media tarred them as traitors. Some of the women appeared in court earlier this year to face charges related to human rights work and contacts with foreign journalists and diplomats, but the trial has not convened in months. The case has drawn global criticism and provoked anger in European capitals and the U.S. Congress following last year's murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi agents inside the kingdom's Istanbul consulate. Rights groups say at least 3 of the women, including Hathlal, were held in solitary confinement for months and subjected to abuse, including electric shocks, flocking, and sexual assault. Saudi officials have denied torture allegations and said the arrests were made on suspicion of harming Saudi interests and offering support to hostile elements abroad. Want to know something funny? Saudi Arabia is on the UN Human Rights Council. Yup. Just goes to show you cannot trust a globalist organization. The UN is a pack of liars. And the EU is a pack of tyrants. And liars. Honestly, there's not much difference between the two at the end of the day in terms of legislation. But yeah, there might even be a basis to suggest that an attempt at globalism was the actual cause of World War I, and not nationalism. Maybe I'll do a special video report on that if I ever find out the clear answer to that. Could be interesting. I don't even know that's actually true, but I'll research that and maybe share that with you good people. See what I find out. Sound like fun? Deal. But the Government Communications Office did not immediately respond to a request for a reaction to the comments by Hathlal's family on Tuesday about a release deal offer. In March, she and some of the other women described in a closed court session the mistreatment they had experienced, sources familiar with the matter said at the time. So, video denial proposal. Hathlal's siblings allege that Saudi al-Qatani, a senior advisor to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, I always say it that way, Muhammad bin Salman, who has also been implicated in Khashoggi's murder, was present during some of the torture sessions and threatened to rape and kill her. The Saudi public prosecutor said his office investigated the allegations and concluded they were false. Hathlal, 30, initially agreed to sign a document denying she had been subjected to torture and harassment. Her brother Walid tweeted the family remained quiet recently in hopes that the case could be resolved privately. But in a recent encounter, Walid said state security asked her to make the denial in a video as part of a release deal. Asking to appear on video and to deny the torture doesn't sound like a realistic demand, he added. The family says she rejected that offer. Some of the charges against the women on trial fall under the kingdom's cybercrime law, stipulating jail sentences of up to 5 years according to rights groups. Now keep in mind, I actually find the story very believable. Because the Saudis are well known for doing all sorts of things that are arguably just as messed up and underhanded as this. So, but keep in mind, though, that simply because it is believable does not automatically mean that it is true. Of course, they could also be covering up evidence. Regardless of what the situation is, she was nonetheless imprisoned for doing nothing more than a little bit of women's activism. I agree that it is time to bring feminism in some form to the Middle East, but to the war hawks who use that argument as an excuse for having war in the Middle East, or continuing it, it's not our place to force it on them. They have to choose it. And right now it looks like they are choosing it. At least some of them are choosing a more feminist approach to the way women are treated and women's rights. So hooray for them. To finish up this article, those against Hathlal include communicating with 15 to 20 foreign journalists in Saudi Arabia attempting to apply for a job at the United Nations and attending digital privacy training, her brother has said. Sources of other activists, intellectuals, and clerics have been arrested separately in the past 2 years in an apparent bid to stamp out possible opposition, even as the Crown Prince pushes to open Saudi society and end the economy's dependence on oil. Okay, so the Crown Prince is actually wanting to end the economy's dependence on oil and open up other economic options. That could be an interesting way around the insane U.S. tariffs and sanctions placed against Saudi Arabia in order to resume their financial growth. But also, well, let's use the example of Pearl Harbor. Never ever put all your ships in one place. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Because once that basket's gone, oops, no more eggs. Put all your boats in the harbor, no more harbor, oops, no more boats. Diversifying your economy actually is a fantastic move on the prince's part. I'm just not sure how exactly they're going to be able to do it when they're obviously going to be struggling under Trump's thumb as far as their economy and his maximum pressure campaign. But as for how this woman has been treated, if she was not too terribly disruptive in her protests, then the imprisonment may be unjustified, which would be pretty typical pattern for Saudi Arabia. Now, as to whether or not she has been raped or assaulted or whatever else, and then give it, asked to deny it all on video. While I find the story very believable, I'm not going to come right out and say that it's true just yet. Believable is not good enough. Alright? Believable is not good enough. You need concrete proof for a claim like that. And if it exists, someone will find it. And then I'm sure the Saudi government will have them killed somehow. I'm sure. Either way, this issue is far from over. Expect future reports on this so long as I have internet. Anyway,